Well, it's that time of year, and we're all being bombarded now as we have the big lead up towards the holidays. Some of us might wait for the holidays to pass and be heading to the shops on Black Friday to get those discounts afterwards. Some of us are tempted now. Some of us have children. We actually need to buy presents and produce them on Christmas Day. What are we going to do? Are we going to walk into the store? Probably not nowadays. It's 2017. We're probably going to go online. But where do we go? Who do we trust? Can we make sure our details are going to remain safe? Can we make sure our goods are going to be delivered on time? All of this is the subject of today's webinar as we look through consumer behavior in e-commerce, and in particular our attitudes towards websites that might not be from the same country of origin as us. And we have a wonderful guest, our MBA Student of the Year, no less, Sincere Wong, who has dedicated her research project at the university to this subject. So without any further ado, let's meet our wonderful guest for today. Hello, Sincere. How are you?
Hi, Joe. How are you? I'm fine.
I'm very, very well. They're getting 2 MBA students for the price of one. I'm in my consultancy phase, finishing now. My consultancy project is on the use of social media for high involvement decision making. And you're actually a graduate, Sincere, and you finished and graduated this summer, with the Student of the Year award. So congratulations on that. Can you just
Thank
tell us a
you.
bit about your background, Sincere, and how you ended up studying with us?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. My name is Sincere. I was born and brought up in Hong Kong. I came to Canada to study many years ago as an international student. I received an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree in social work, as well as a postgraduate diploma in social work research. A few years ago, I really felt that I needed some formal training to become a better leader. So that really motivated me to look for an online MBA program. So I landed on Liverpool, University of Liverpool online program because I was really drawn by the quality of the curriculum, and also some of my friends had done the online program and let me know that they had a good experience. So the other factor is also because our hospital had a connection with I guess you guys, and we get a discount as well. So that's also nice, and another factor for me to really go with the University of Liverpool online program. I'm a brand person. I trust in brand. So I think the fact that University of Liverpool online program really is a good brand is important to me. So, they are one of the universities that is known for research with the Russell Group, and I think that really means a lot to me because I believe in evidence-based practice. So. And that's how I landed in the University of Liverpool online program. As you mentioned, I just graduated in the summer and with a Master of Business Administration degree. So I have been in the working in the healthcare field for the past 27 years. So right now I work at Trillium Health Partners, which is a teaching hospital affiliated with the University of Toronto in Canada. At the hospital, I wear different hats. For the leadership role, I'm a professional practice leader for social work for the 3 sites, and we have about 150 social workers. So part of my job is to provide leadership in practice and education, so helping social work staff to comply with the standard of practice and legislation. From the clinical side, I'm a social worker for the surgical program, and part of my job is to help patients and families who may have concerns about going home or coping with their illness. So I'm also involved in teaching the medical students at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and that is the Mississauga Academy of Medicine. So you can see that my job is not boring at all.
I mean, you have a lot on your plate, and that's what I like about some of our MBA students, quite similar to our project management students, is they come from very disparate, different fields, and they want to be, better managers, better leaders, and have a better overall understanding of business aims and objectives and meeting those. And I'm glad with your MBA that you've managed to kind of take on that generalist perspective and explore all those areas. Now, today's webinar is interactive. You will get out of this session exactly what you put into this session. So please all have a question prepared, as in 25 minutes or so we're going to get to our Q&A, which is an opportunity to ask questions about the course or ask questions about the subject matter that we're talking about today, which is trust in e-commerce. We asked Sincere a bunch of questions about her work, and as well as the subject matter that we're talking about today. We're going to kind of delve into those questions as the bulk of the webinar. So our first question that we had for you, Sincere, was what really interested you to pursue this particular type of research in terms of e-commerce?
Well, my dad owns a grocery store, so I was brought up in a business environment. I've always had a keen interest in consumer behavior. Just like many people, I love to shop online. I'm always curious to know why some people would choose to go with a particular shopping website. So I went to do some literature review and observed a very interesting phenomenon, and that is some e-commerce giants such as Alibaba, eBay, their success is really limited to certain countries. So, for example, in North America, we all know about eBay, we all know about Amazon. They do extremely well in North America. But interesting enough, they're not well received in China. And similarly, Alibaba is doing fantastic. They are well received in China, but somehow their legacy does not seem to extend to the North American market. So to me, like I'm kind of wondering what's going on here. I ask the questions, what really stopped them from doing well, expanding globally? And is that something to do with the brand of the shopping website or the country of origin effects, or are there any other factors that might influence the online shoppers' perception of shopping website? So because of all that reason, so I decided to delve into a little bit more deeper into the literature review and realize that there's really not a lot of research done, especially on the area of country of origin effects from the perspective of consumers from the Western countries. So, and that's why I decided to do my dissertation research on this topic. And really the purpose is to find out, maybe to explore a few factors that may influence Canadian online shoppers' perceptions towards a foreign website. And I choose AliExpress.com.
Lovely. I mean, there's certainly a cascade effect. I mean, I can remember, let's say 10, 15 years ago when people were slightly reticent to even buy products online, and online shopping was still kind of nascent. And then once people started shopping online, they started trusting the main brands. And now people trust shopping online, they trust the main brands, and now the third stage of that is, do they trust some of these ancillary brands, or brands that might not be in their, in their culture, or around for ages. In the UK, we're all used to WH Smiths or Tesco's, but what if a new player comes onto the market? What effect does that have? In your research, what factors do you think affect a consumer's trust towards a website that might be unfamiliar to them, or from a country that's not their native country?
I think there could be multiple factors, that affect consumers' trust towards a foreign website. So I can certainly go on and on and on, but what I'd like to focus on today is to share with you the findings of my study that I conducted in Canada. So the study for my dissertation is really to explore if the country of origin effects, security, privacy, and navigation design affect Canadian online shoppers' perceptions towards AliExpress.com, which is a foreign website in the eyes of the Canadian shoppers, online shoppers. So I did an online survey and using snowball sampling and virtual snowball sampling. And with the 178 respondents, what I discovered was that navigation design, security, and privacy had a significant influence on trust. Well, interestingly, country of origin effects did not have a significant influence. So I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about that later on.
Exactly. So yeah, let's break that down. I mean, that's quite a thorough study, 178 respondents. Can you just tell us a bit, because it's very interesting for our students, what snowball sampling is? Some of them might want to use it in their research.
Well, snowball sampling, it actually is well known in the research field. So what you do is you would send your survey to your friends, family, your colleagues, anybody that you know, and ask them to really identify, the targets. So you let them know who you are looking for, and ask them to do you a favor and send the survey to their friends. Their friends would send it to their friends. So it's like a snowball effect. And so those who fill out the survey, you actually don't know them. I would not know who fill out the surveys because they're not my friends, they're not my family, they're not my colleagues. But somehow they're connected with, my social circle. So that really helps, with the validity and the reliability of your survey.
Eliminate some bias. I really like that. The first issue that we're going to look at is security. What role does security play in website adoption? Sure.
I think, as we know, online shopping, there are a lot of uncertainties and risks involved. And so one can easily understand and agree that cybersecurity can become a barrier, a major barrier to shop online, as we hear more and more about transaction fraud in the media. And so when you shop online, you may have thought about, what happened if a third party, access your information when you pay online, and what happened if you don't get your shipment, your product, on time, or you get the wrong product after you pay. All these things people are concerned about, and rightly so. And so because of that, I think for the e-retailers, they really have to make sure that they have a secured mechanism to address the consumers' concerns, and so that the consumers will feel comfortable to shop, online and at their particular shopping website. So now my study, what I find out is that it shows that security, in fact, has the strongest influence on consumers' trust towards the website AliExpress.com. So you may ask, so what does that mean? So what it implies is that for the e-retailers to gain the trust of Canadian consumers, they really need to step up the website security measures to minimize the perceived risk associated with online transaction. Simply because Canadian consumers, their trust is primarily built on the security of the website, the shopping website. So some of the strategies I think that I could share, or is also known in the literature, could include, for example, the credit card encryption or data encryption that would enhance the confidence of the online consumers. Or you may have third-party approval, seal of approval, such as the TrustE, Best Business Bureau accredited. All these would also help us to, when we see those logos, we feel more confident to shop on that particular website. There should also be, I think, other channels, in case if consumers may have concerns about the security of the website. For example, you could have them contact through multiple channels, like emails, live chats, calls, etc., so that they don't feel there's nobody that they could turn to. I think those are really important.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, if we're all here in the audience now, let's just think about it, right? We've ordered something, but we haven't ordered it from a trusted supplier that we know. What is the first thing that's going to go through our minds? Have they received the money? That's the first thing that's going to go through my mind. So I'm going to want some kind of confirmation of that. That looks bona fide. The second thing, which comes up very, very quickly, is when are my goods going to arrive? Are they going to arrive timely? And then are the quality of my goods there as well? I mean, I'm sure all of us have the kind of same thought process when we go to buy something online. And then if we get more sophisticated, then we think, you know, what's the return policy? If they're a really good website, like clothing websites like H&M, for example, then they can return stuff without charging you. And then that's an extra level of trust that you have. The second area that you looked in was privacy. I think it's important that we kind of try to outline what's the difference really between security and privacy, and what role does privacy play in website adoption, Sincere?
Okay. In fact, I think privacy and security, some of the research, they really consider the two concepts, you know, together as one construct. But I have decided to treat them separately because I think that, yes, they share very similar features, but at the same time, these two concepts are so complex that I think they really deserve to be studied separately. And in fact, there are also studies that study security and privacy separately as well. So I think we just have talked about security. I think privacy is something that is more about the information that you share online, right? Yeah. So how the e-retailers would use your information. Will they sell it to a third party without asking you? And your personal information, your credit card information, where do they store that, you know? All these is really about privacy. You know, are they getting your permission to disclose your personal information, you know, to a third party, for instance? Or, you know, all of a sudden when you shop online, you may see some advertisement, you know, pops up.
The shop will follow you everywhere. So if you're going to go on AliExpress, and the next time you're on Facebook, you're going to see AliExpress again. Next time you go open an application or something from the App Store, you're going to see AliExpress again. Like, how much does that website follow you, like it's stalking you? You know, all
and
of
they never ask you for permission. So
or if they do, it's in very, very small print, and you've clicked and agreed. And you haven't even noticed.
So I think you might want to be careful next time you're online. Make sure your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or your spouse is not sitting right beside you.
Exactly. Especially when it comes up to Christmas as well. You can all check what people are buying for you as well. So now's the time to browse, to do private browsing if you're buying your wife or your husband the presents for Christmas, and they're, you know, a bit too keen to find out what you're buying them. There's certain websites that are going to be a bit more secure with your details. Now, design is, you know, as someone who's very interested in design, personally, I really do believe design plays a really big role in website adoption. What were your findings, Sincere?
Well, website design is really about how the information is, you know, displayed on the website. You know, the layout, the appearance, are they attractive? And how easy and quickly it is for users to navigate through the website. And the research has shown us that an effective website design not only really gives the online consumers a positive shopping experience, but it also really contributes to consumers' trust and positive attitude towards the website as well. So you might kind of wonder, so what really constitutes a good website design? Interestingly, in the literature, there's really no consensus about that, you know, and so there are all kinds of different research out there talking about maybe visual design is more important or information design is more important. Now, in my study, I have chosen to focus on navigation design because simply because it has been considered by a study done by Liu and Rastick to demonstrate the most significant impact compared to information design and visual design. So what I discovered is that navigation design actually significantly influenced consumer trust, although the level of influence is not as strong as security and privacy.
Exactly. I mean, there's a familiarity as well. In the digital marketing trade, for those of you that are, that are developing, front ends for clients or working with clients on the website design, there are traditionally two ways to design a website. One is SEO focused. Sites like Amazon, Alibaba, AliExpress are directories, so they tend to have an SEO focus on the way they're laid out. And the other way to design a web page is with a conversion focus, buttons, calls to action, click through to convert. And that's when the main channel that brings in people to the website is social or another paid or organic channel. When websites use the navigation as their front end design, they're usually channeling things through Google SEO optimization. So there's a lot of practicality in the way things are designed, and now with responsive design elements and very, very quick and sharp code, there is a lot of different ways to do this. And as you say, Sincere, you're right. In academic literature, the field is moving so fast, even between the time when you've done your dissertation and now, the field has moved again really, really quickly. So it's very hard academically to get a hold on what constitutes good design across the board, because different companies and different shopping experiences or different website experiences require different design elements. So there's a lot of stuff out there on how to design websites, but none of it's very academic indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not yet. Let's talk about stereotypes. What do you think? What kind of things do we bring in when we go to a website? What kind of preconceptions and prejudices do we kind of lay on when we go and open a website and click? And do our preconceived stereotypes play on our feelings towards websites that might not be familiar to us?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very interesting question. So maybe I'll talk about what country of origin effects is first, so that we have an understanding of what the concept is about.
Mm-hmm.
Country of origin effects is really about one's stereotypical perception of the country where a brand or product was made. Now, as we all know, the shopping website is not a product, but it is a service. So in the literature, in the case of a shopping website, the literature talks about consumers may associate the brand of the shopping website with the country where the brand comes from. So for example, when we talked about AliExpress.com, immediately we would think about Alibaba, right? So because that's the brand, and we know that Alibaba is from China, so the consumer may associate the country image, which is China, to form an impression, whether it's a positive impression or a negative impression of the shopping website. So just like when you pick up a product, when you see that it's made in China, the label, immediately some people may think that that means inferior product. And others may say, oh, but that's cheap, that's what I need. So certainly there are different, consumers out there. And so the study that I conducted, interestingly, shared a very different finding from the study, in the literature. For example, there's a study conducted by Huang and Day in 2006. They did a study in China and comparing Taobao.com and eBay. What they find out is the Taobao.com actually was better perceived by the Chinese online shoppers than the eBay in China. So you can argue that from that study, the Chinese online shoppers seem to favor the local shopping website. But in the study that I conducted in Canada with the AliExpress.com, interestingly, the finding shows that the country of origin effects did not have any significant influence on the consumer's trust. So what that means is that perhaps the country of origin of AliExpress.com, which is China, is really not what matters to the Canadian consumers as far as trust formation is concerned. So, and I would argue that that actually creates an advantage to Alibaba because they can focus their energy and resources on the factors that really means a lot to the consumers. So they can prioritize the marketing efforts and
Yeah.
focus more on the factors that would, create a positive impact to create trust for the customers.
Exactly. I mean, that we do carry stereotypes in whether we like it or not. And you said it, made in China. When you think of a product in China, made in China, you think it's going to be mass produced, going to be slightly less expensive. When you think Switzerland, you think, oh, luxury and good timing. So what is a Swiss website always going to deliver your goods on time? I mean, these are just preconceptions that we bring into something and don't necessarily have a lot of stock to them. But it's once a website, as you say, kind of crowds around these big principles of security, privacy, and design, but it doesn't matter where you're from, you have a response to that. I mean, is there a real typical Alibaba or AliExpress consumer, do you find? Is there a particular demographic that they're aiming at?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and I'm pretty sure that the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, would want to know that as well. Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure if there's a typical profile of Alibaba consumer, but certainly this is an area that I think can be researched on, would be an interesting topic as well. But what I can share with you is perhaps the demographic profile of the study that I completed in Canada. So with the 173 respondents who completed the entire survey, including the demographic section, 37.6% of them were male, while 62.4% of them were female. So we have slightly higher female than male in the survey. And that compared to the Canadian population, that also reflects a slightly lower male and higher female proportion. For the age group, 63.6% of the respondents aged between 31 and 60. So, which means that they're middle-age group. And that's very similar. Yeah, that's very similar to the distribution of the Canadian population as well.
Right.
For the annual income, 74.6% of the respondents reported that they had an annual income of 45,000 Canadian, which is slightly higher than the median total income of the Canadian population. And as far as the education is concerned, 72.3% of the respondents said they had either an undergraduate or a graduate degree from a university. So most of the respondents were well educated.
Educated professionals.
Yes, and 91.9% of the respondents said they had online shopping experience. But interestingly, slightly over half, and that's 52% of the respondents said they had not heard about AliExpress.com, which is very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Yeah, so 82.1% of the respondents said they never had any experience, online experience with AliExpress.com. They don't know about it. They never went online to shop there. So, which I find it very interesting because although these findings are, limited to the Canadian experience, but somehow it does echo, what the literature indicates that AliExpress.com, their presence really remained largely unknown to the American consumers.
Well, I mean, I think in Europe it's taken off big star because we're all, I'm based in Amsterdam, we're all using AliExpress a lot over here currently, and they're even trying to get us to put items in our basket for the 11th of November, which is their version of Black Friday, and they've redesigned their app, so exclusively on the app you can do all these games and get coupons, and they're really, like, the marketing machine is firing on all cylinders. They've spent an absolute fortune trying to get to every type of consumer. I think their consumer, like Amazon's, is everyone, anyone who can get a credit card, to be honest. I mean, how can e-commerce companies from China, or even from developing or emerging markets, really grow their business in established markets such as North America or the UK through their website?
Um, I think with the trend of the e-commerce companies going global, everybody wants to go global nowadays. Whether it is the e-commerce companies from China wanting to expand to the North America market or vice versa, I think it is important that the e-commerce companies should take into consideration of the multiple factors that really pull or push the online shoppers from their shopping websites at different parts of the world. So for example, the factors that we just discussed earlier, navigation design, security, privacy, all these are really key to gain the trust of the Canadian consumers. Certainly there are other factors out there, because my study has limitations for sure. And there could be other factors, for instance, culture, whether they played a role, in influencing the trust of the consumers or not towards the website. That's also something that I think should be looked into. And however, I think one should really keep in mind that there isn't really a one-size-fits-all formula, for website adoption. So in other words, whatever works, in Canada might not work in other countries. It might not work in Vietnam or Guyana. So therefore, I think we should really think global and act local, trying to customize marketing strategies for the local consumers.
I think I'd agree entirely. I mean, we showed a picture of Wish because I think Wish is such an interesting example in the market. Now, I was listening to, we discussed this before, since I was listening to an American podcast. It's an NFL podcast, so obviously, the American Football Association is huge in America, lots of listeners. And I'm told, the podcast presenter is telling me, download the world's largest shopping app, the world's #1 biggest and most downloaded shopping app in the world, Wish. What I thought was really interesting about Wish is that they've taken the Alibaba and AliExpress strategy and design of an aggregated supplier marketplace full of Chinese suppliers, and it even looks like a website straight from China. But the thing is, the entrepreneur who owns it is from Eastern Europe, is not based in China. And so even now, we're copying the Chinese model as people from outside of China, because wouldn't you say now that AliExpress and Alibaba have trailblazed for everyone else, and they've spent so much money in building the reputation of aggregated Chinese supplier marketplaces that now you could start one up and you'll have the same reputation bolted on as you did with AliExpress, as long as the securities is working and the encryption's there and the design's there, as you say.
Yeah.
People will automatically start using these sites. There's a precedent.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You can certainly create a business for that, and I think what is important is to really know your online consumers and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, what really draws them to your website, and learn from other companies' success story as well.
Of course. So on the program, what kind of modules did you really enjoy? What kind of theories did you take from the program that really kind of helped you and informed you in this research?
Well, I think to reflect on my learning experience, and certainly it has been a very fruitful and enriching learning experience for me. There are a couple of courses that I really enjoy taking from the University of Liverpool's MBA program that really provide a lot of insights to drive this research. For example, the module that I took from consumer behavior and marketing perspectives really strengthened my understanding of what is important to the consumers and what drives them to make certain decisions, in their shopping journey. Specifically, I think there are some concepts that, I think that are really helpful. For example, the understanding of the process of perception, how attitudes are formed, the cross-cultural differences, in different places, and how culture, played a role in the consumer's mind. The pros and cons of adopting a standardized strategy versus a localized strategy in the marketing effort in the global economy. All these really help to lay a good foundation for me to do the research. also, I would say that on top of that, I had a fantastic dissertation advisor, Dr. Ng Jiang, who has been wonderful, and I would call her a level 5 advisor, just like the level 5 leader. When we learned about the leadership theory, she has been fantastic in really giving me a lot of insights and suggestions. When I designed the topic and the survey, the analysis, and all of that. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much. And as we continue, Sarah, it must be fate, because I just saw my phone ping in the background, and the message says, "Hi, it's AliExpress. We've got a special present for you." So they must know that we're talking about them. As I went and did some research on them last night and downloaded the app, and they're already chasing me, Sincere, to make sure I fill in my my basket.
So there's no privacy here.
There's no private. I don't know. There's no private.
Yes.
I signed up to the app. I should have turned off the notifications.
Yes.
So that gets to our Q&A part of today. Like, fascinating look at of all the kind of things that make good websites tick and kind of drive us to click and understand that our payment is secure, that our details are secure, and our goods are going to arrive securely. Very interesting indeed. And we have a few questions from the audience to get through before we finish today. So thank you very much, Michael, for fielding those questions. I want to ask a few of those questions today. Let's have a look. After the online shopping boom in one country, how do you think conventional retail is surviving? How fast do you think regular stores are going out of business with the enhancement of security systems in online payments?
You mean the conventional?
Yeah. I mean,
so
JC,
the non-online shopping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saks, JCPenney, yeah. How are they doing?
Yeah, I think there are research that really indicates that the online shopping is really the trend, right? And that really creates a threat to the conventional model, the stores. And you may see that when you go to the shopping mall, you may notice that some of the brand name stores are closing, right? Which probably in the olden days you would not see that, but certainly it is happening here in Canada. I'm not sure about in your place, but what really tells us is, here, for example, Sears is really going into bankruptcy. So, so really, I think, you might think about, whether that has something to do with the trend that more people are going online to shop, and therefore it really creates, a threat to them. What also that tells us is, those stores, in order for them to survive, whether they're brand name stores or whether they're just small business, they really have to be creative, to draw their customers and do something that probably would be different than what they used to do, and maybe really reach out to the consumers to understand what the needs are and how they can be different compared to the online shopping model. What kind of shopping experience that they can provide that they cannot get from the online shopping platform. I think those are the good strategies that probably they can start with.
Exactly. Another one for the audience. What do you think is more important, a website design or the merchandise's quality and price? So, how does where does the product fit in?
Well, I think that's a kind of a challenging question, because you may have very good website design and to draw, your consumers, but you may have displayed the product, and really get their attention, and they think that, gee, that's really fantastic. The price is good. The product looks good, But does it mean that when you get it, you may be shocked? You know, I certainly had that experience, and I said, "Gee, is that truly what I purchased?" You know,
Looks nothing like the
and
picture.
it doesn't look like exactly the
You
same.
always have to check the review on AliExpress to see the person
Yes,
wearing the picture and see them taking a photo of it with their phone. And that's the only way I'll ever buy a product on AliExpress, if I see someone actually review it personally. So it
yeah,
completely does affect us, right?
it does, because what we cannot, you know, you cannot touch the product, you cannot
No.
feel it, you cannot smell it. So you can only see it on the website. So, and you make a decision based on that. So when you get the, unlike in the store, you know, you can touch it, you can, you know, feel it. And a lot of the people actually, well, including myself, if I want to buy something, I might go to the store and feel it, touch it, you know, and make sure that that's really the product that I would want to get.
Yeah.
And then you go online and you kind of compare different websites in terms of the prices, and you know, decide which one you want to go with. And I think that's also another challenge for the regular store as well, because people come in, you might have a lot of people coming into the store, but that does not necessarily mean that you are gaining a lot of business, because people may be coming
Yes.
just to, you know, get a feel of the product.
Yes, and especially with these directory stores, they're marketplaces. So it's a different concept. When we're aggregating a marketplace, the website's only as good as its weakest link. So if you've got a supplier who's completely unreliable, then AliExpress, these websites have to manage their own suppliers, cull suppliers that aren't reliable in order to maintain a reliable service. And that's how the review system comes into place. And that's why when I get gifts from Alibaba and AliExpress, I often have a handwritten note inside a pair of glasses or something I've bought saying, please give me a good review, because businesses, these suppliers are living and dying off of these reviews. Now, we have an interesting question from one of our audience members. How do you think, what role do you think currency plays? Some countries, like Bangladesh, for instance, cannot pay to foreign websites as governments restrict the control of currency. How do you think we can overcome this kind of challenge in emerging markets?
Well, I think, you know, for that, they may have to be creative and come up with other
Yeah,
payment methods, you know,
yeah,
if they're not, because of the certain legislation or restrictions that
yeah.
they have. I'm not sure if they could come up with, you know, other creative strategies, because here we could, you know, like, you could use your cell phone and pay.
Yeah.
You know, you could just tap and pay. So I think a lot of, like, I know Alibaba, they come up with very creative strategies, you know, in China, you know, and that's how they started to earn their business. And but there are some countries I know that, you know, may have limitations for that, and maybe they need to, you know, come up with other payment methods, you know, that would work for that particular population.
Okay, very nice. Thank you very much. Let's have a look at the other one. An interesting question actually about the program from the audience. How was your experience the first time joining this program? So I imagine, because we've got a term start in the next couple of weeks, 9th of November, that this is someone who's
Mhm.
actually joining our program in the next couple of weeks. How's your experience in the first time joining this program? How confident were you with, it says, with the pluses and minuses of the review? Yeah, how was your experience?
Well, I joined the program in June 2014, and the first module that I took, I remember, was leadership. It was a very interesting module. I was really, to be honest, I was nervous at the beginning, because I did not have a business, you know, background, even though that I was brought up in a business environment. My background is really social work and healthcare.
Mhm.
So when you go online and you get to know, you know, your classmates, most of them really come from a business background. I really didn't feel that confident to begin with. However, you know, as I continue with the module, I think about a month later, I would say that I started to feel really comfortable. You know, I kind of learned, you know, what is expected, and how to get my homework done. And also, because doing online is quite different than going to school. This is the first online learning experience that I had, with the MBA. Because before, it was all you go to school and you go to the classroom, you hear your prof, and but online is quite different.
Quite different
It-
indeed.
it's quite different, but the beauty of that is you get to know, people from all over the world, and you learn from the minds of, people, who are really an expert, in certain areas. So I learned from the instructors, and I learned from, my classmates. I think after a month, I would say that I felt really comfortable and uh, really have a good understanding of what is expected. And what is good about the University of Liverpool is they really give you very good orientation. I remember before starting the program, I was offered, an orientation session that you get to hear from, the faculty members letting you know what it would be like, what to expect. You also get to learn, from other folks who had done the program to get a better understanding of, what the challenges might be. So you have something, to prepare. And so I kind of knew that this is coming. And for example, time management would be really important, for me. And I would say that the support that is provided by the University of Liverpool online program is fantastic, because they have your study, your student manager, support manager. You can certainly go to that person when you come across any difficulties. I mean, we all have our lives. We all, at some point in our life, things happen, and so there are people that you can turn to. And I would say the instructors that that I had, they're all very understanding. They know that we do have a life, and we have work, family, study. We need to balance all these, and it's not an easy job. So I think uh, the module is about 2 months, but I would say halfway through, about a month, I started to feel really confident.
Exactly. It does take about a month to get your feet under the table. I believe there's a lot of formative feedback in that first module, so you're not graded from the first second. So there is some time for you to do that. Sincere, I'd like to thank you very much for giving us such a lovely tour around what makes good websites click, and how consumers behave, from both perspectives of businesses looking to start websites and from consumers using websites. I think we've got a really good kind of 360 vision there. So thank you very much for your
Thanks
support
for having me.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish you every luck in your future endeavors. Maybe one day I'll be speaking to you about a DBA or a PhD or something like that. So thank you very much. And thanks
Thank
all
you.
to our students as well, and our prospective students on the call today. I wish you all a lot of luck. But if you're listening and you're prepared, you won't need any luck at all. So thank you very much for the University of Liverpool online webinar. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye now.